All right. Happy Thursday, everybody. My name is Wesley Alexander. I'm the CEO of CoBiz Richmond, and I'm really excited today to kick off the Great Diversity Series with a phenomenal entrepreneur, a visionary, someone who is about creating access and opportunities and also impact while also creating prosperity for himself and for others, Mr. Kemdi Ebi. And he is the founder and the CEO of Enterfive. And the ultimate purpose of the Great Diversity Series is to hear from diverse movers and shakers across various disciplines, no matter where they are located, to learn about their journey, to hear about their lessons learned, understand their purpose, and to ultimately understand that all things are possible when we move in our purpose. And so we're really grateful that Kemdi is here to join us today. So how you doing, Brother Kemdi?
Hey, how are you doing, Brother Wes? Thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate this opportunity to share.
Definitely. Now, I know a lot of times, for example, we're here in Richmond, California, a traditionally underserved community, about 60% diversity in terms of African Americans and Latinos, only 50 miles away from Silicon Valley, yet there's a huge disconnect in terms of resources and access. And so being able to hear from someone like yourself who has traveled the world, who's been able to take something that's an idea and actually convert it into an actual enterprise is definitely needed, as there's this perception that it's hard to find great talent that is diverse. And so we want to, for those of us who are diverse, hear from you about your journey, how you overcame the challenges, right? That's what entrepreneurs do. That's what human beings that are determined, that's what they do. So we're really excited to hear from you in those regards.
Any opportunity to share and obviously, just play a part in, giving some much needed insights to the Black community and, as a whole, and then also obviously what you guys are doing, your mission and what you stand for is truly a very big, just huge need, and I'm just really happy to be a part of it, and hope we can do more.
Yes, indeed, we shall.
Yeah.
Awesome. So first place we want to start is we want to know about you as a person. So you mind telling us where you're from originally?
I'm a very interesting fellow. I actually, so I was born in Manhattan, New York. So I have some US in me, definitely. But I'm both my parents, obviously Nigerian. I'm originally Nigerian. I definitely am the very almost perfect experience, or in this case, explanation of an African American, because I literally lived my formative years in Nigeria and also in the US. So I got to see both sides literally in a very sort of complete way, my formative years. And obviously, I have very deep roots on both sides. So I went to school in the US as well, finished my high school there, upstate New York, and then I went to American University. Obviously, we already know that we met there as well. So between New York and the DMV, I pretty much grew up there and spent most of my school, college years, and corporate years there before I moved back to Nigeria to essentially build Enterfive Systems.
Awesome, appreciate that. And it's pretty cool to hear about, like you said, your transformative years in both places and being able to really understand that. I think the term you use, that we really are one. So that was pretty cool to hear that.
Exactly. Literally, it's one of those things where I feel like we oftentimes forget that we all pretty much share the same experiences no matter where we are. And I think the more I learn about what's even going on in the US with the minority population, even the Black population directly, and even here what we're going through in Africa as a whole, as a continent, it's really, again, we're going through kind of similar struggles, but then it's also about how we're helping each other, sharing experiences to see how we can essentially prosper as a unit, as a Black community, wherever we are. So
definitely. And would you mind telling people where you are right now?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm in Lagos, Nigeria right now, and um, interestingly, today is Nigeria's 60th Independence Day.
Congrats.
So yeah, Nigeria is much younger compared to the 244 years the U.S. has. So it's a growing country, growing economy. A lot of
Looks like we have a challenging connection.
a lot of prospects. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I guess I think every once in a while we get a little interruption in the connection, but that's okay.
No, sorry about that. It's part of what we have to deal with here on this side of the fence.
Correct.
I'm gonna try to do something to correct.
Understand. I love the fact that we're dealing with real topics, right? Real things, and this is an example of just finding ways to navigate the challenges. So that's what we're doing right now.
Okay. I'm so sorry. The connection is it rained earlier today, so the connection is quite bad. Hopefully we shouldn't have too much issues. So apologies again. It's one of the issues we deal with in this part of the world. So yeah, but we move regardless.
Yes, exactly. And that's the whole point. That's why hearing your story and how you're navigating those challenges to create solutions is going to be, I think, really insightful. As we all face challenges, and being able to have the right mindset is how we get through them. So thank you. So I know you mentioned before that you said right now it's Nigeria National Independence Day. So what's your plans for celebrating?
Yes, for sure. I was just saying, like, yeah, it's 60 years, a young but growing economy. Country is obviously the biggest in Africa at almost, we're nearly 180 million people. So the opportunity in terms of just how massive it is in this country alone, talk less of the other big consumer markets in Africa, is huge. But again, we're a young country compared to, again, I'm just using the US as a example because 244 years over 60 years is, when you have advancement, you have advantage. So yeah.
Understand. And would you mind just sharing a little bit about your educational and professional journey to date, prior to you starting Enterfive?
Yeah, sure. So I basically spent a decade. So I have a background in marketing. Went to the American University, Cole School of Business. I had a particular focus on consumer behavior. It was some very big topic for me in terms of understanding, the essence of consumers, why they buy, sentiment, etc. I've always had a very big passion for that. So essentially, going forward, I then finished school and went straight into the corporate world, where I spent a decade across consulting, software sales, and product development, by working with a lot of growing companies in the mid-sized stage, looking to essentially be acquired. So I was very much privileged to be in the helms of the corporate, units that were responsible for either restructuring, adding new technologies, and just making them more attractive for off-takers on the acquisition side. So it ended up being that both companies I worked for in total ended up, they both got acquired, and total value of both combined was about 3 billion. One was about 2.9 billion or so. The other one was about just under a billion. So just being in that room and in the conversations with, again, the corporate execs, and of course, being a person of color who had the privilege of also seeing, just how things were working, and being part of that, early conversation of how do we build to essentially attain high growth, to attract the right investment and hence the right sort of partners, in this case, acquisition partners. It was always something that was very interesting to me. And I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur from when I was 14. So I kind of made up my mind then, as early as that. So being in these early stage companies or mid-size level gave me that sort of entrance and visibility into what it takes to actually build companies from that sort of level. and not just that, build sustainable companies, right? Because it's one thing to go from 0 to 100, but then when you then get to that level, how do you sustain that where it becomes a long-term success that, you know, entails a potential IPO, acquisition, whatever it might be. So that was kind of my, I guess, my entry, or in this case, my professional and educational background combined that led me to where I am now.
Awesome. So tell the people a little bit about the company. I know you started in 2015, and what was
Yes.
the vision? Did you bootstrap it?
Yeah.
Tell us about the building a team.
Yeah.
Co-founders. Take us on the journey.
Oh man. Okay. So basically, interestingly, the idea incepted after I did a voters education campaign in 2011. The voters education campaign was primarily around educating Nigerians, young Nigerians, on the importance of voting. And when I did that, it was involving digital tools like Twitter, at that time, BlackBerry Messenger, and whatever was available then to essentially promote the idea of democracy, and to some degree why the importance of voting was clear. So we got a lot of return in terms of assessments and feedback from the community and the folks we were reaching out to via Twitter and all these things. And we noticed that, well, I noticed at least that some of the feedback was also coming in different languages, which also allowed me to, I utilized the Western tools I had to listen, and listen meaning social listening. So they have tools that can actually go in and, you know, get relevant feedback, or in this case, relevant keywords rather, to track and listen in and give you information based on the keywords you're trying to track. And I noticed that it was coming in different languages. And I then realized that the different languages weren't understood by the Western tools I had access to. And that kind of brought up the eureka moment. And then I then called my then friend, who's now my brother-in-law actually. He worked in Google. And it's a funny story actually, because my co-founder, he was in Google. And I told him, hey man, I think we might be onto something here, because I got this brilliant idea to build a sentiment engine for the African market. And he's like, really? That's crazy. That's something that has never been done, at least on this part of the world. So why not just give it a shot? And that's when we started. And lo and behold, we kind of started to uncover more about why it was important to open up this opportunity to other industries beyond just, you know, the social political scene. Obviously, you know, the same people who are voting are the same consumers every day of different goods and services and different facets of the, you know, of the country and the continent, etc. So we knew that it was an opportunity to expand that idea further. And let's just say we kind of decided to bootstrap using the agency model, which is where Enterfive was incepted. So building a very innovative tool like what we have needed to be done in such a way that we first bet on it ourselves. And it was important for us to essentially figure out how to finance it. So again, we used our brains to sort of say, you know what, we are, you know, my partner and my co-founder is a product guy. I come from a more product background from a business perspective. And I was like, you know, let's build products for people, start to understand and research to understand even how to build Versus better, because Versus is the product that we're building. And in 2018, let's just say it led us to having the first iteration of Versus now available as an enterprise product. So in 2015, we did start Enterfive, and then 2018 was when we launched Versus the product. And then Versus essentially just took off from there. It was quite organic because we already built some goodwill and things from just building the agency itself. We had a lot of great partners and friends and things like that to help us to then essentially have Versus be available and ready. And then we then started introducing external investment from 2019. And, you know, I guess the rest is history. So Versus as a product essentially is an insights tool that allows for brands to have complete competitive actionable insights on the African consumer market. Before now, the problem we're solving is that it's very hard to get the right sort of data on the African consumer market. It's either there, if it's not there, it's really, really scattered, and it's not very translatable in this case for proper intelligence on what to do next. So we are trying to solve for that because there are a lot of people Obviously, I mentioned to you we're a young economy at 60 years. So, in investment speak, that's kind of coming in at an early stage. So, when you have such a very interesting opportunity in Nigeria, Kenya, Ethiopia, South Africa, these are again big consumer markets in Africa, who are equally young in their existence. It's important to also have people be guided in how they do business, all the way from the bottom to the very top.
Understand. Appreciate you sharing how an experience in 2011 allowed you to glean some insights about a problem that potentially was unaddressed when it came to the African market, and you were able to collaborate, as you mentioned, with your co-founder to kind of test the idea. So can you kind of share with us, a lot of times we have entrepreneurs here who have great visions. They identify a problem and they're trying to solve it. Can you share with us, how did you test it to validate that what you're producing is something of value to the customer as well as to your to the enterprises that will be utilizing the services?
Yeah, good question. So it definitely first took for us to, again, better ourselves. So we had to build an MVP, which is called the minimal viable product, that would allow us to test with brands that we knew had presence in Nigeria, and then sort of also use that as a way to gain further research material to build intelligently, right?
I think could you share for the audience here, when you say minimum viable product, we think MVP, we think in sports. Could you kind of when we talk about in the startup arena, can you share a little bit of what that really, the significance of that?
Absolutely. It's really a low risk way of testing out product market fit. And whenever you incept a product, most times in the journey, it's very important to remember that, before putting in too much time in building the full car, to move you from point A to B, you can actually build something more like a, I don't know, for lack of better words, a skateboard, right? That can get you from point A to B. So it's cheaper, but it still does the same job of moving you around, and for less money. It's taking risk for the less capital. So MVPs are minimal viable products that, again, you build your skateboard before building the actual car. And what it does is that when you found out that, okay, I'm moving from this destination to this one with the skateboard, and I can get faster and even go further with a car, the skateboard approach, again, with the MVP approach, allows you to do it at a minimal risk, that essentially helps you also use the time to validate your market. So essentially the market we were looking at were the big corporates, in this case FMCGs, and any sort of publicly facing company. And at that point, when we built the MVP, was when we realized that there is a market and they are needing this product, and there was definitely like the problem that we were solving for. So once I think the very first step for entrepreneurs is identifying the problem set. And if that problem set has a big market share, in this case, there's a big pool of people that are looking to solve this problem, then you already have a product that would help essentially and has a bigger chance of success. So, when people tell me why they come into doing entrepreneurship and they say they're looking for essentially to make into the $1 billion list, I immediately tell them that's not the approach, because really if you come in with that approach, most times 9 out of 10 you get burned, and you might not reach that goal. Most times the most successful people, with the grit and everything they have, they really are solving for, especially in the tech side of things, right? Because I'm in the tech industry, so it's really about solving the mass problem. And the bigger the audience that you're solving for, the more likely you will probably reach those goals. So it's really first the problem, then building that solution in the form of technology that can scale to help the many million, billion people that your market share might entail.
I appreciate those insights there. When you mentioned creating an MVP and testing or validating the need for the service, how were you able to create traction with the customer base you're trying to reach?
Yeah,
a lot of times access to early adopters, sometimes it's challenging for those early startups.
You're very right, which is why So it's a mix of things. So we were very sort of unique in our approach of growing our product through the agency, because again, what the agency model allowed us to do was, while we were bootstrapping, we were literally putting into practice our own expertise and why we are valid, or in this case, why we are, um, you know, the right people to build a product like this. So we were actually investing in building services and building products tailored for the African market while building Versus. And we actually amassed a very organic following in the process that included clients and partners that were privy to our services and all our value proposition before we actually launched Versus. So when we launched Versus, we already had a list of partners from Salesforce to many companies we had worked with locally, globally. We had already even gotten a recognition on the Cannes Lions innovation stage at the time through RGA. So it was really easy for us to almost transition with all of that organic traction to then introduce Versus and say, hey, by the way, we have a product that we're opening up to the world. We've been kind of quietly working on it, and told a few of these people who we had strategically kept aligned through offering them services and product management and consulting and all of that, while financing this product development of Versus. And that was just, again, it was a really smooth transition. And in a way, it also literally left us with little or no marketing spend, because we were leveraging the network we had built organically. So one thing I always feel is, I think it's important that entrepreneurs bet on themselves first as best they can, obviously, build as much as they can, so that they can actually then use the natural traction that they're getting from what they're doing to actually then kind of bring out the rest, because you want to start with attaining the most evangelists possible before you then go into the laggard zone. So there's this thing that we do in product world where we look at this bell curve, right? And that bell curve essentially is showing you what the transition from the evangelists to the laggards are. And it really
Could you once again, not to interrupt, but I love the fact that you're sharing these terms, because we're looking to raise the acumen here for those that are looking to start their own business, whether it's a nonprofit or actual traditional tech startup or just a small medium enterprise. They need to apply the same principles. So you mentioned the term agency. Could you elaborate on that piece?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Agorists and evangelicals. Appreciate it.
No problem. Yeah, thanks. Whatever I need, you just keep stopping me and let me know. I love the idea of sharing. So if I go too far, let me know. So an agency, again, in this case, the agency was it's pretty much like a platform that allows for Enterfive as an agency allowed us to offer a range of services, mostly centered on product marketing, product consulting, product development, which was sort of a combination of myself and my co-founder's skill sets. So we used our intellectual property to essentially produce services and consulting that where we find that we took the monies that we earned from that to essentially seed Versus, right, in the initial stage of bootstrapping. Now, that helped us at the same time to obviously amass really, early stage adopters who were evangelists of our product when we launched it eventually, because we then told them, hey, by the way, we've offered you these services, we've told you who we are. I mean, obviously you saw value, you gave us money in return for that value. So here's what we're building that might also be of value, because we know you have this problem as well. So it was very easy to transition for us in that regard. Gotcha. And then the next thing you wanted me to elaborate on, what was it again?
Pretty much just as you mentioned in the bell curve, the transition from.
Okay. Yeah, and I think in general for business owners, I think it really is applicable. Like you said, it's not different for any industry. I think if everyone uses that same sort of bell curve concept to think about how they go into marketing or even product, introducing product to the public, it's a very, very relevant. I use it all the time when I do sit downs with both my team internally and even people I advise outside of what we do. And that bell curve essentially shows how the transition from building your base with evangelists who would then cross over as early adopters and help almost to cushion you against the laggards when you get to the more out there public, sphere. Because in the early stage of building, you want to make sure you amass enough early adopters that people who are like family, friends, or even people who are actually supporters of what you're doing that need this service so that they can actually believe in it and be the ones to even refer you, as well as also keep being your constant evangelist, tool, that whenever you then go out to the public and you're now in the laggard zone, you always have your evangelist there almost as your natural third party sort of validation, as opposed to you having to come out there every time to tell these laggard, population, hey, you got to believe in what I'm doing because it's really, it's the stuff. Like what we do is the best. It's always better when you get it from the evangelist zone, who are people who are not very much you, but people who have experienced what you have and can actually speak on your behalf. And that just naturally already eradicates the need to even have enough, in this case, sometimes it's smart marketing as well, right? Because whenever you know who your target market is with the evangelist in the early stage, you can kind of focus your efforts on communicating to them in order to build enough of a population there before it then just inevitably goes out to the laggards.
Yeah. Awesome.
I hope that makes sense and hope it explained well.
No, it did. And I think one of the biggest challenges that people who are new to business is that they believe everyone is their customer. And I know earlier you mentioned it's very important to understand what problem you're solving, because that helps you understand who your target audience is. Can you share with us how you were able to identify your target audience, considering that when you look at the diaspora or the customer base within Africa is pretty broad? Like you mentioned, these huge consumer markets, and being identified which audience you're trying to reach is pretty critical to securing those early adopters.
I think it was a mixture of hypothesis. Research guides your hypothesis, right? And when you then want to go into the conversation to almost conclude and make sure your hypothesis is accurate, that's what almost obviously then helps you to further continue on and still essentially earn your stripes as an entrepreneur. So what we did was the initial research that led us to know that there are companies, brands out there who have Africa operations. We saw stories of brands spending tens of millions of dollars on research that only involved 11 people for a simple product launch, and ended up having it basically become a dud because they didn't have the data or research tools or the right sort of partners on ground to essentially guide that investment better. So, we had so many of those recurring stories that we found, which drew the hypothesis that this is a need. And then we basically now went into those conversations with a bit more confidence with citing a lot of these case studies, which again gave them a reason to then listen to us. So believe it or not, and I think this goes for any entrepreneur out there, when you've basically done the research and you've basically built your hypothesis, and a hypothesis is pretty much an educated guess or conclusion on this is what we have pretty much confirmed, and now it's about going to the right sort of people that you've identified as your target audience to say, I have a hypothesis, and is this correct? So meaning the problem that I feel you have is that you don't have enough African consumer data. Is that correct? And if they say yes, then well, aha, I have the Advil for your headache. So that's the idea.
Understand. And when it comes to the Advil for your headache, when you presented it to those particular brands, both globally and locally, global companies as well as local companies, what was that product? Tell us about it. How does it work? What are the tools you're using to glean these insights into the African consumer to provide value to them in regard to their marketing efforts?
Yeah, no, that's really good question. So I'll tell you what the product is, and I'll also tell you, similar to when you introduce a new vaccine for COVID, a lot of people will be initially like, let the other guy try it first. Or let this other guy try it first before I do it. Because I want to make sure there are no side effects. So you do, that's one of the things I would want to highlight in terms of innovation, because we were the first movers when it comes to this idea of combining online and offline, which was our listen and ask methodology. So I'll explain. So Versus combines this listen and ask methodology to give brands this complete insight in this one console to essentially guide their research on an ongoing basis. The listen part is where we are able to go into online media like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We can go into online news, and we can take that news particular to the African space and also translate the sentiment if it's also in local languages that are African, which right now no other company is doing.
When you said sentiment, what do you mean by that? Sentiment analysis, sentiment engine?
Sure thing. So a sentiment engine pretty much is, a simple way I'll put it is literally like a repository that is, and a repository meaning a storage where our data scientist has essentially built a storage for languages that essentially the system can understand every time it gets a unique phrase or sentence that is drawn from online. And if it's in Swahili, if it's in Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, these are all like popular African languages spoken by many Africans. It would literally have a storage to essentially learn those languages and annotate them correctly, basically by saying if it's positive, negative, or neutral. And if you can imagine, for every single time it's spitting out all of these annotations of whether a phrase or a sentence, someone basically says, I don't like Pepsi in Yoruba, right? Or I can speak it in Pidgin English. So in Pidgin English, people could say, I no like Pepsi. Right. Now, I no like Pepsi is Pidgin for I don't like Pepsi. It would annotate that correctly as positive, as opposed to Western tools that may not understand that language and may just keep it at neutral or positive, which is wrong. Now, why it's important to brands is that they are always on top of reputation management, and they need to know the reality of when they are getting 30,000, 100,000 phrases and sentences being spoken on Twitter and online news. They want to be a bit more accurate in understanding when it's African, when it's the African consumer. At scale, they want to know this engine is giving me the right, annotation, right? That's basically how the sentiment engine works and how it's essentially unique. And that's why, as an innovation, we had to be very, let's just say, careful and still very persistent in our approach to making sure that people knew that we had, for the Advil we were presenting to this new headache called COVID, it needed a bit more validation from other people who were willing to test it. And that's what we had to, again, like every new vaccine, I know you would probably agree with me. You want to hear that 15 other people took it and there are no side effects before you then take it, so you're COVID-free forever. So right. that comes with innovation, and it's not to be scared. You have to stay confident, obviously, because again, we said we have to do this. Sorry, I'm going to go back and explain, continuing what the product is. Okay. The listen and ask. So the ask part is where we essentially have a group of scouts that are on ground who have access to an app on their phone, and they can receive survey questions directly from the brands, from our dashboard, who may answer questions and receive credits, and these credits can then eventually be cashed out. So it's another way we're also providing an income earning opportunity for the everyday African, where they're now part of this community of researchers, and they can actually also earn from a little bit of what the marketing spend of a big ABC Corp that has tens of millions of dollars in marketing and don't know what to do with it. Now they can take a very small fraction of that, ask questions specific that will get the right consumer answers. And we basically take a very healthy, equitable split where we take some, we take our cut, and then we give obviously some monies as well to these consumers who then have access to cash to do a lot more things. Because again, one of the things we struggle with on this side of the world, just like we are in the US, is a large number of unemployed people, as well as also just, even furthermore, access to quality education and quality income sources and things like that. So in a way, it just also, in a way, combines like, solving for these things in a social impact manner. And that's the way we also combine getting this, access to surveys that can be done in a very fast digitized way, and at the same time compensating, in this case, scouts that are in our network. So that's the listen and ask methodology in one console. But the way it looks, again, I know it maybe sounds a bit convoluted, maybe what I'm talking about.
I follow you.
I'm trying to be professorial as best as possible, but I promise you, we make it so simple in terms of how it looks for the customer when they're coming into the dashboard. We take care of all the complexities on the back end, obviously, but in terms of what the customer sees and what they actually are putting together, it's quite fast and straightforward to get what they need to get, and obviously as a very scalable product.
And with the sentiment analysis, is it using any machine learning, any artificial intelligence to help you analyze what you're digesting?
Absolutely, very good question. Yes, it does, and we're using obviously it's more specific sentiment AI, where we're taking a lot of the samples of different phrases said in different ways in different languages, and we have a group of data analysts and a linguistic researcher who's leading these data analysts that are taking data samples from our different sources and feeding the engine, so that for every time that it catches anything similar in language, in structure, in phrase, or whatever it is, it's always most times accurately translating it the right way.
And I know you mentioned just momentarily, unemployment, access to education, access to just resources. Why is the startup ecosystem a viable tool to help and address those particular challenges, whether in Nigeria or anywhere else, from your perspective?
It's a huge one. I see entrepreneurs as change agents. Once you have a vision, you're able to, like you said in the very beginning of our conversation, it's a powerful, I'm Christian, so it's God-given, I think. And it's a powerful God-given, thing that allows you to pursue your purpose on earth. And naturally, once that purpose is identified and it's pretty much cemented, there's no one who comes in touch with it when you're communicating it that wouldn't support it. And in essence, in this case, you build a company, you're building something, you're gonna always have people who are gonna want to build along with you, because they somehow have also seen that this vision is something they need to also do. So what are you doing in that regard? You're also creating jobs, right? Right now, I think the US is averaging about 16.8 unemployment within the Black community in the US, and obviously that's not, that's something that being, improving and having a platform like yours with CoBiz, where we can actually build and groom entrepreneurs who can then help in putting out vision and executing it well to create jobs. It already, takes down that number significantly. So it's no different from here in Africa, where we are constantly going through unfortunate bad leadership, and it causes, a turmoil in the economy, puts people out of jobs. And if not that, we even have a very terrible educational system. I'm just being direct, that's why you see a lot of Africans who leave the country to seek better education in the US or Europe or anywhere else outside Africa. And so when given the opportunity, then and you're able to be in a pole position to understand how to do certain things, I think it's all our obligation once you're given a purpose to execute it and see how to create jobs in the process. It's the one fundamental, I think, thing that ensures entrepreneurs as the direct contributors to any economy anywhere in the world.
Understand change agents, and the critical word you used was purpose, because as you mentioned, that's how you build your team. That's the connectivity to having people who are passionate about the thing you're trying to achieve. And then also with your early adopters, when you're able to identify that value and they also understand your purpose, they tend to be a little more patient with you in the process. So I'm happy that you highlighted that. One thing
it's really amazing though, I must say, Wes, that it really resonates when the founder or the founding team, whoever might be communicating what that purpose is, it always resonates. And the commonality is that problem set that you said this is an issue. Someone has been through that problem, felt it, or just feels like they can learn because they've seen something along those lines and just latch onto it in the early stage. In terms of building a team, because I know you had asked about that. Usually once you start, first with the co-founder, you're now going into a management team. What makes people join your mission is not really the money, clearly. It's more that purpose, like what that thing is that is going to allow them to join in the legacy you're building. And that legacy has to be, most times, a very common issue, a common problem that you can go back to. Once you built it, you can come back and say, look what we did. We've solved for, this big cancer, and we finally found the cure.
Definitely. I know we lost a few minutes with some of the in terms of the connectivity piece, so I want to be mindful of your time.
But, no, please, you can have it. Actually, it's a public holiday, so it's fine. It's not your fault either. So
no worries. But a lot of times, people who step into a new business, a new startup, a new nonprofit, they have ideas of grandeur happening in a very quick time frame. Can you share with us some of the challenges that you encountered and how you were able to navigate them, from whether it's like a support from the government, or whether it's dealing with support from family, whatever the case is? Can you speak to those real challenges and how you were able to navigate and keep the ship afloat, capital, whatever the case may be?
Yeah. Interestingly, our biggest issue was, what I just did right now when you asked me all these questions, they were very valid questions, because you're trying to understand, what is this innovation? What's sentiment? What's this? What's that? Like, we went through that realistically, because, here I am, with my, my nice little vision and a nice, pink, blue balloon, whatever you want to call it. And I'm like, hey, we're floating. We're going to go up to the sky. This balloon is going to take us all high. And was it going to be like, no, like pigs don't fly, So, you have to almost like remove that sort of doubt from people on a constant basis to say like, no, this is something that is needed. This is something we have to do because no one else is doing it. And being able to actually amass that sort of support in the beginning is tough.
What do you mean by tough?
The more rare the solution in terms of what you're trying to do or what you're trying to build. Like, if let me use a random example. So there's this really popular. There's a very great saying that this popular guy we know as Jay-Z, right? I was listening to a random interview, and I think he's relatable. Everyone knows Jay-Z. Jay-Z is like a very huge popular black figure. And although he didn't start out in the greatest way, obviously, like, in the streets, selling drugs, whatever, but he even said it himself in that interview that he learned so much in his business acumen and how to deal with stuff. And I will address that separately, because I think what you guys are doing also is really great in terms of giving people access to learning business acumen from people who've experienced it, so not actually have to, learn it the way a lot of people like Jay-Z did, right? And it's really a good forum to get people to say, no, you don't need to go through that, because even people like Jay-Z saying, no, you can actually not do what I had to do, learn from where I actually did the right things to get where I am. But he basically said something. He said, it's really important that we don't allow people's fear essentially, transcend to us, because that's one of the things that stops people from progressing. And he said in a very early stage, when he was telling his uncle or something that, he wanted to be a big time rapper, his uncle was like, no, you're never going to be a big time. You're never going to make it, And that really is something that is always going to be the case with when you want to be an entrepreneur. People are going to tell you, people are going to inflict their fear on you, not because they don't want to support you, right? And it's always your family, people who are close to you. They're going to tell you, what are you doing? Like, are you crazy? You're not going to do this. Like, come on, just go get a job, get something, and like stop thinking like you're going to be the next, Jay-Z, or going to be the next Will Smith, or whoever, right? You can, but the idea too is like, it's really having that sort of assurance, and that's why it's really important to really understand, like, if you have a purpose and you kind of have this conviction that it has to happen, you are the first person to bet on yourself, right? You have to be persistent. You have to kind of go with your gut and build it out. And so again, our biggest challenge was really getting over that hump in the initial stage, which is why it was important for us to build Enterfive as sort of a way to show that this is something that we're sure about. We financed the initial Versus product, knowing that it wasn't going to be easy to get external funding. And we used our intellect with what we understood about building products that were suited for the African market to build products for companies, get money, and show them, hey, by the way, we built this for you. You remember what we did that? Now we have a product we built that's actually even more, and we can scale with this. How about you join us in this? And that was really what we had to do. There's no other way we would have been able to achieve this. And that's why we have a patented product, by the way. And obviously that's what we're trying to use to really build on the value, and obviously just kind of use that as a way to also inspire others to innovate no matter what. It's very important.
Definitely. Wow. That was really insightful in terms of the transference of fear onto your purpose or your vision in life. That was really, really important. And then in terms of the mindset to be able to persevere by understanding the uniqueness of what you're solving and knowing that you did the homework to allow you to basically be in the game and test it out no matter what people are saying. So definitely appreciate that. Some of the things when it comes to, diverse people produce quite a bit of content, and it's really important to protect it. And you mentioned that you have a patent. Can you speak to why that was important, what the leverage it gives you, and where you foresee Enterfive moving in the future?
I think it's really one of those things where if I ever had an opportunity, and I hope you guys do, where I can also talk to aspiring entrepreneurs who want to essentially do this, it's very important to have all of your structure in place early, right? Something that's very popularly mistaken for building a company is people just think, I got to start and just start moving at 100 miles per hour, not look back, and just make money. And then whatever happens, we'll figure it out as we go. But the best entrepreneurs, the best that have actually progressed beyond just, angel funding, and even to some degree have gone through to Series C, Series D. Those guys had structure, right? Even as they were building and trying to scale fast, they figured out ways to do all the essential things legally and even accounting wise to make sure that they would be essentially seen as serious business owners trying to build some structure, and hence also guide people who they would eventually be employing, and also protect them for, knowing that they're working for a viable, credible, and a solidly founded company. So again, when you have that mindset that you're not building for yourself, you're gonna realize it's like almost like building a house, knowing your family is gonna be in there. You have to think very, very, you don't build a house of straws, you build a house with bricks. You want to make sure it's done well. So it's not any different. Before people come into your house, you want to make sure they're safe. So you got to do all your legal checks, you got to do all your accounting stuff from the very beginning, even if as simple and as manageable as you can. I mean, those things are usually cost centers, but again, there are tools out there that allow young founders and very young entrepreneurs to do it, for a very minimal price. But the reason why we did the patent was very simple. It was we knew that it was not. We kind of already did the research enough to know this was not available, and we just started going into it. I just quietly asked some friends, and also obviously when you're in the process of pursuing a patent, you can't launch the product or anything so that it's not public. So that was also the opportunity I used while we were actually bootstrapping Enterfive to do the research as well to make sure that we could, kind of close that. So in a way, a lot of things were happening during the bootstrap sort of phase where we were securing the patent, building the brand, building our reputation, kind of building our validation, as well as the product and financing everything going into the product. So everything was sort of happening that period. So it was quite interesting, and obviously it gave us a level of, again, that additional validation, which always go into conversations to say, we have a patented tool. It really helps, but people say, oh, okay. And obviously for investments, it's always great because people will then say, so you're onto something. Yeah. So,
gotcha. Awesome. And then there's two more questions to see if anyone on the webinar has any questions themselves. But a lot of times, sometimes entrepreneurs like to isolate themselves. They run into a little bit of hardship, and they kind of just stay in their own little bubble. Can you speak to the importance of being around other entrepreneurs and being able to piggyback or pick the brains of each other to ultimately navigate the challenges and the opportunities that come your way?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's a very popular mistake people make when they have an idea and they don't want to say it because they feel like someone's going to steal it, someone's going to, take it and do their own thing. But I think it's very, very important even for entrepreneurs to have the discernment to know where to go for advice and to talk to people who've done it before. And more specifically for the Black community, I feel like there needs to be more of us that's obviously available to provide our time and experience, to share, so that people kind of can guide their decisions better and become viable companies that ends up helping to create more jobs for our people everywhere. And this goes to the minority groups in general. So in essence, I feel like it's really important for us to be available. And that's, again, I have to commend the work you guys are doing with CoBiz Richmond, because, that's going to be a great platform that would obviously attract more experienced Black founders who can offer their time to build, big time leaders who will be, reshaping the economy in the US and globally, people that look like us and other minority groups like Hispanics and Asians and whatever, to just have a different story, right? And from a perspective that also helps the underserved. So I guess, to answer your question, which is pretty much, we gotta make it, something we do more often. Like we gotta share experiences. We gotta be there and talk to people and open up the ideas bank.
Definitely. And as we look to build bridges across geographies, how can people here tap into utilizing your service in terms of potentially doing business in Nigeria or other places within the diaspora? How can people connect with you, do business with you? How can they be of support to you?
Awesome. So basically, again, just being able to know that another extension of our values exists through CoBiz is great. So really appreciate even knowing that, you guys are there. Secondly, our to know about more what we do, Enterfive, the agency, it's enterfive.com, enterfive.com. And our product Versus is, you can also see more about it. It's called Versus, versus.africa. And again, the idea really is that, we want to help brands, people who have interest in getting insights into the African consumer market, knowing that it's the next investable sort of destination from the global economy perspective. And
why do you say that?
Sorry?
Why do you say that?
Because again, when you look at the trajectory of investments, usually, you want to start where there's clearly not an let's just say there's clearly an entrance for early stage investments. Like when you have more opportunities available, that always attracts more likely investments that would grow into, obviously, high yielding returns. So, because of the stage where Africa is, where it's still young in its stage of existence in terms of the economies and just a lot of the developments that are still yet to happen, it's just attractive as another, again, just looking at all the other developed economies around the world, and you're then looking at where else could we go and, potentially take some captive market. And I think it's also a great destination for the Black community to know that there is a chance to do stuff here as well. And the opportunities are endless, right? So that's why we want to make sure that before you come into the market, you have tools like Versus that can guide your decisions, so that whenever you're looking to invest, that money can be used wisely, knowing that I have a very popular saying, like, before I make $1 billion decision, I'm willing to spend $1 million on the right research that guides that decision, right? You want to always do that so that I'm coming from a premise of intelligence gathered to secure what I know is inevitable, with learning a lot from the opportunity. So yeah.
So is your platform something that a small or medium enterprise here in?
Sorry.
No worries.
We just had, and this is an electricity going out, so they're changing. They're changing over. This is another big issue we have here. So apologies. We have electricity issues. So this is me now.
Nah, listen. We're having real conversations. I actually love this because we can be the ones to solve these type of issues, right?
Exactly. So yeah. Again, it's one of those things where we have to we still work, we still do what we do, regardless of the infrastructural challenges we deal with. I'm even happy everyone's getting to see it live. Like,
yes.
But I still have a big smile on my face, and
hey, same here.
We're rolling.
We're having authentic conversations. I mean, it took us a year to get dedicated fiber into this area for us to open a space and provide the level of networking that required for sophisticated businesses. So it's not unique to what you're seeing there. So we totally understand, and you keep it going, right?
Sure. Absolutely, we just have to. It's where the opportunities lie. We have to just keep being consistent and persistent with just driving our material solution in there. We got to keep going. We can't stop. So yeah.
Yes, I do appreciate the time. The last question we have is, as young, diverse entrepreneurs here are looking to expand their markets, they're looking at potentially Africa as a space to bring their services and goods to. How could they? Is Versus a platform that's affordable for small, medium enterprises here to utilize as a platform to glean insights, or is it more for established brands?
Very good question. So we actually are introducing an SME plan, which will be more affordable for small, medium enterprise businesses to have access. Knowing fully well that they always, in every economy, SMEs are always the key to growing economies, right? We also feel like we have a service to offer them and we must find a way to, provide them this access and guide them as well. So we're looking at rolling that out within the next month,
Okay.
all things being equal.
Yes.
And yes, we would definitely love to collaborate with, young startups, also within your networks, and even in the US as well, who are looking to get access to like really good sound African insights. We would love to, see how we could work with them as well. And we'll definitely be at the same affordable range of what we feel is doable for small, medium enterprises as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Definitely appreciate that. And I'll definitely stay in contact with you about that so we can share it with the various stakeholders that we come across, as people are really, I think, opening their minds to the possibilities. And so that'll be a great resource for them to have available.
Absolutely. Thank you. I would definitely hold my word. I will deliver.
Yes, I know you will. I just want to open it up real quick for the chat. Anyone have any questions? We thank you all for your patience and your time, and just starting off this first series with Kemdi in terms of his insights. And I hope that you learned a little something that you can kind of take with you in your own endeavors to build your own enterprise, and understand that the work we do can reach the world now with the tools that we have available. So if there aren't any questions, I will share this video feed with all attendees. Actually, looks like we got one real quick. Oh. Well, in terms of I will send out this video when we're done recording to all the attendees so people can have access to it. We're also going to share it on Instagram, different clips, things of that nature. And we appreciate you, Harleen, for asking, are we looking to expand it into other language brackets? Yeah, so are you looking at, Harleen, is your question more so for the African market or just in other geographies? Oh, so I guess, Kemdi, the question is your platform, the sentiment analysis that you're doing, is that something, yeah. I know the African market is huge, but are you looking to bring that into other geographies, Asia?
We believe in, just going with the way we've experienced the journey of building our solution, obviously starting where we know there's a clear gap. We feel like it's a 1.2 billion population size in Africa. And this is the potential consumer market that a lot of brands are trying to understand better. And before now, there's nothing. Most other markets and geographies, there's something that exists. Because obviously, some of those languages have been covered, by other Western tools and tools that can capture those. For instance, the Chinese have their own sort of tools. I had the privilege of meeting a data scientist when I went to Beijing who built something similar for the Chinese market. And everyone kind of needs the sort of native experts to sort of look into how to build for where there's a gap. So I think, but definitely as we scale and we see the need to expand, because again, Africa is such a huge, like, continent that has again been underserved as well. And that in itself is going to be a really big challenge for us, because we already have a goal of 11 major African local languages to cover for our sentiment, analysis and training. And that's going to be a constant thing. And I feel like there's going to be more that comes up. But just by virtue of having a basic English that is, or let's say a Western English, it still can be used by US companies as well, right? So if that's one geography to cover, like we could still use it because we are able to still understand that, but uniquely we can do beyond that as well, right? Where people are more specific to like African regions. So, but as the market also expands, we will definitely, or rather as the market, dictates, we can also see other opportunities of where to expand and where there's a gap to fill.
Understand. Well, it's National Independence Day in Nigeria. Kemdi has been more than gracious with his time and his insights, so much that I learned here as well. And I'm looking forward to observing your continued success, and however we can be a resource to you. You know that we're here to support. And we look forward to the next conversation we'll have in the future on new developments.
I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, I really, really sincerely appreciate like having a platform like this and being a representative of the Black community. Just here, just had the privilege of coming to Nigeria, building a company here, building it to have global reach. You know, it's just awesome to know that you guys are there because we do have shared values as far as versus Enterfive and what we stand for to also build what we know into grooming new leaders that could do even more than we've done. And any opportunity to do it, please definitely know we're here. We definitely support your mission, and thank you so much for allowing us to at least share our experiences. We want to do more, just know it. So just count us in.
Whatever. Definitely. You stay well, stay in that purpose, and we'll keep our eyes open for individuals who can be in support in terms of what you're doing in the motherland. And thank you for your time as well. We appreciate you.
All right. Thank you so much, Wesley. And thank you all for having us. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for attending. And everyone stay well. Happy Thursday. And look forward to the next one. We have a creative named Michael Starghill who has done amazing work in photography with Nike, Houston Rockets, all type of professionals and just regular folks. And he's going to speak to how he was able to create a successful enterprise around his passion for creative content. And that'll be October 13th at 12 p.m. The following week. So looking forward to having you guys join us. Thank you, guys.